I am one of the many members of the Against Committee for DuPont Prop 1. To the members of the For Committee of Prop 1, I ask that we work together and provide a couple of meet and greet, question and answer sessions for the public at City Hall, Patriots Landing, or another business. It's time that we unite and actually work together. For the past decade, the citizens that have served on the Against Committees have always presented other options.
Instagram, Twitter, probably Snapchat somewhere, I don't know. It's available online for anyone to look at and read. The slides and presentation stuff is actually here too if you want to look at that at all. I've got loose pages running around too, so if people have questions, then you can point to the presentation and stuff like that. So, first of all, thanks everyone for coming out. I know that election politics season in DuPont usually gets pretty dicey and hectic and stuff, but being able to talk about it and communicate and answer questions and openly discuss things is, where things can get resolved and discussed. So that's the hope for today, is just to have everyone ask questions. If you've got questions, get answers. If you haven't gotten the answers you've been searching for. Some questions that have been coming up a lot lately. A couple that we've been seeing a lot, mostly on social media. I can't keep up with every DuPont community page there is in DuPont. There's a lot of them. About myself, I do work for the City of DuPont Fire Department. I'm the Vice President of the DuPont Professional Firefighters local. I'm born and raised in Silicon. I lived there for 34 years. Grew up running around in DuPont on Center Drive before it was actually Center Drive, and there was Jersey barriers and chain, and it was your parents dropped you off and you had until the lights came on before they came to pick you up. So from the area, my mom retired out of Pioneer Middle School and Stoke Scholarship. My dad was here for 20 plus years and got a job in Eastern Washington School. So I have some vested personal ties with the region and the area. A lot of folks are wondering why is the union running this levy? Why are we pushing it? Why are we forcing our agenda on the citizens and stuff? The city had made it clear after the last levy attempt, 2017, that the city wasn't going to run it again, and the union had to get involved and handle it. There's actually a sentence in the budget from the mayor that says the fire union has to get involved. So not being a politician ever in my entire life, I didn't know what that meant. I asked some questions and was pretty much told that if we felt that we had an important ballot measure that had to take place, it needed to happen before the 2020 presidential election cycle. Because that's when not just local politics get involved, you now have national politics, and everyone gets pretty nasty around that time period as far as just messages and boisterous and this and that. The other issue is too is that you spend whatever funding you might have for a campaign, and we all know what's going to happen next year. You're going to go to your mailbox, and you're going to go, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, recycle it. So the message gets drowned out over larger politics. The situation with the calls and experiences that our personnel are experiencing in the fire department and what the citizens are experiencing in regards to a lack of paramedic services in the city hasn't been improved, hasn't changed. It was on the ballot in 2017. The city ran every measure in the past, and then this time the union spearheaded it. We felt at the time when we decided to take it on that, hey, we are the professional, paid, out-of-the-box problem solvers in the community. Let's come up with an efficient, effective way to do this that will hopefully work for the citizens of DuPont and fix the issue at hand at the same time. So I presented that to the city government. Wasn't too favorable because they wanted this to happen later on down the road as a long-term projection. But we felt the issue was still present. In 2017, it didn't pass simply because it didn't have a supermajority of 60% of the support. It had over 58% support, but just fell short of the margin. A lot of things that I had heard and what we had been told was it was too much of an ask. There was a lot of confusion with how the city presented it with. They wanted to increase it by $1 or $2 with the intent of combining the EMS levy into it, so the ask was for $1.52, but the EMS levy had to expire. So it was kind of confusing to keep track of with that. So we did the math, came up with the information based on wages and what it would take. In the past, the city had tried to hire the paramedic program, the entire program. The last attempt was for, I think it was adding 12 personnel plus doctor supervision for the program. So 13 personnel added to our department. We don't even have the bedrooms for that. And it was a little much. Instead of hiring 13 or even hiring a whole handful of paramedics to join the force, we said, well, hey, we can hire what we feel is needed to maintain a sufficient paramedic program to get it started and get it going and provide for if someone's sick or has a scheduled day off or is on vacation, they still have a medic available in the department. And then we can promote 3 of our own personnel to create a retention program within the department for people who want to stay to work for DuPont Fire Department. Right now there's no upward movement except for the 3 captains if they choose to retire or resign. So there's that. The other thing with that is that with the adding 3 personnel, promoting 3 personnel from within, at the end of the program, you'll have 8 City of DuPont Fire Department firefighter paramedics for the cost of less than if you were to hire 7 of them. Because you're not adding a whole new body, you're just promoting 3 people versus adding 3 people. So that's where that kind of started off. Started crunching numbers and data and came up with the proposal. The first presentation was, I think it was back in March. It was a presentation Mike made to the Public Safety Committee to show this is where we're at, this is what we've got, based on feedback from the committee and citizens that were in attendance and questions and answers after the meeting. The presentation evolved to reflect the questions and answers. Another presentation was made in April at a city council meeting to show here's this information. Again, more questions, more hands were raised, wanted to know more about this, they didn't really care about this. So what about these questions? And then that then evolved into what this presentation is here that was shown at the July council meeting. So this is one that's on the city's website and YouTube and the Instabooks and all that stuff like that. So since then, the city council voted to adopt it as an ordinance to put it in the hands of the citizens to vote for it. It's the lowest ask that we've had for a levy program. For a paramedic program for a levy ballot measure. There was a chart I saw on the InstaWeb that showed all the previous attempts, what the ask was, and how much the voter margin difference was and stuff. One of the questions we asked, why is it so cheap compared to the past attempts? On the city didn't run the levy effort or the presentation, firefighters did. We took, like I said, from 13 personnel, we knocked it down to hiring 6 personnel. So that already cuts the total ask of adding personnel in half. With that alone, we didn't need to have a shift battalion chief on every shift. We just don't have that incident command structure to have that, to need that overhead staff command structure. That's why the ask is so much lower, because we're not asking to add so much to the department. We're asking for what does it take to get a sufficient paramedic program that's going to meet the needs of this community. So that's where we're at.
Percentage of how many calls you get age-wise. It's not all senior citizens you're getting calls for, right?
Yeah, so if you want to know what the percentages of age demographics for who we're responding to calls with, I do not have that data. I'm not even, I can't even ballpark that one off the top of my head. No, and unfortunately, I think with the current data tracking process, the only way to really achieve that would be to go through all the emergency medical reports to calculate. That's not a statistic that we can keep track of to the best of my knowledge. But you would have to, somebody would have to go through, have a record request that information, go hands-on with every emergency medical report, and then provide you with redacted information for ages and breakdown of the staff. Which gets muddy because then it turns into, there's a bunch of red tape with HIPAA and stuff like that. You'd have to really target just that one thing, and it's just not trackable.
What patient care reporting system do you guys use?
Patient care reporting system,
Yeah.
as far as electronic,
Yeah, so you
We don't have electronic.
or
Yeah.
all your documents paper?
all of it's paper. All of our documentation is paper. There's been discussions about moving to electronic, so what Jason's asking about is how do we keep track of medical information? So when you go to the hospital, usually nowadays, you got a laptop, I'm sure Seattle and most agencies in Pierce County have a little iPad they run around with, and it's just tap, tap, tap. We've been working with other agencies in the region to figure out which one's the best one for us to move towards. And not too many people are sold on even doing them, and most people just hate doing electronic reporting because there's more issues with it than there are with just handwriting it out. But that's hearsay. That's not a study that shows this. That's just what guys in the hospital, when you pass them, like, man, that tablet looks nice. I got writer's cramp. And they say, this thing sucks. Because it doesn't connect to the internet, they can't print or whatever. So, but it's technology. That's, there's growing pains with any new technology or moving towards a new technology system.
My sister-in-law, who had self-diagnosed, used to live here in DuPont, and she was diabetic. One day at my house, she just passed out, diabetic, and I ran 911 her asking. They fed her strawberry jam, right, for the sugars on the Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Oh yeah. Strawberry jam, orange juice.
Jam maker.
Food is better than medicine.
So thanks for doing this. And then the next thing I would ask is, can we just do an introduction?
Sure.
Because it's kind of informal and
Sure.
that's kind of how. Because I don't know everybody's name.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
start that.
Just do a round table
Yeah,
introduction.
if everybody wants that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know everybody's
Yeah.
name. And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm Jason, like I said, and we'll start over here.
Jessica Customer, I run the store college.
Big owner, Union Village, we moved here in 2002.
Krista Novak, we live on Palisade Village since 2006.
Jason Hughes, lived in Belleville since 2008. Primarily involved in the community since late 90s.
Kelly Lamada. I've been here nearly 12 years. My husband's retired Army. I'm mom of 2 wonderful boys and one-time volunteer in insurance. So it means a lot. So I'm involved. The letterbox is now.
Thank you. I have a question on how you guys came up with your model. Is there another city that's comparable that is doing this? What is, most people, we copy something or we use something, we base it off of that. What are you basing your model on, your staffing model?
The staffing model that we're basing off of is what other agencies use. Other agencies in our region have paramedics on the medic rig, the ambulance. They have paramedics on fire engines. They have paramedics on ladder trucks. They have paramedics in sprint cars. Just our neighbors next door at West Pierce, when they come into town on engine 23 from Telecom, there's a paramedic on engine 23 when our mutual aid comes in from JVLM for a medical emergency or anything like that, JVLM fire brings the engine 101 or ladder 101, which used to be right across from the Clark Road entrance right here, with the paramedic on it. Unfortunately, that station is now shut down, and they've moved 13 minutes further away into the center of the base. So with that staffing model, we said, okay, what we have right now with our current staffing, we have 2 on the ambulance and 2 on the fire engine that are EMTs. If we took that and we said, okay, we make a paramedic, we put a paramedic on board, we can have a paramedic on the ambulance and a paramedic on the fire engine, with the intent that we go to the call, the ambulance is on the transport, you still have a paramedic in town that can provide ALS level skills if there's a second call that occurs. And then an ambulance would come in, our ambulance would come back from Madigan for the transport. with a fire-based medic program, we could look into mutual aid options with West Pierce, for example, for reciprocate a medic program if we need to. That's all future, above my head pay grade discussion stuff, but that's what other agencies are doing around the county. Is having a medic on the engine, medics on the ambulance, and staffing it that way. How we figured out the staffing and stuff like that, as far as how many people we needed, for example, was that Pierce County Protocol does not allow to have a part-time paramedic program. It's kind of an all or nothing situation. So in this model here, I can pass this around, and that staffing model you'll see on the bottom, the end result, if you will, after having hired 5 paramedics in the blue down below and having 3 of our own go to paramedic school. With this staffing model, you'll have 2 paramedics on each shift. The rover position, which is something that's in the contract that we did with the city a while ago, is developed to reduce overtime costs with the city. So if a personnel is off, the rover works those off shifts. So that way we don't drop below staffing and we're not calling back all the time. So with these 2 here, they'd be able to fill in, pick up 18 shifts that would in essence be 18 overtime shifts. So not many departments have a rover position like DuPont does. We have a rover position for the department, if you will. If you go to another department, they might call them rovers. Typically they're called hobos, which isn't very politically correct nowadays. But the reason why they're called hobos is because they don't have an assigned home. So Station 25 is the only station that we have, so that's our home. So our rover shifts versus West Pierce might have a rover that's on C shift that rovers between station 22, 23, 24, 31, and there's assigned station changes every day to go to work. So that's how we came up with our staffing model and what we're proposing. If we have 1 medic on for that day and the medic has to call out sick, you're now scrambling to backfill for overtime. And if you only have 3 medics total in the program, then it kind of leaves you high and dry for getting one of those 2 guys that maybe come in because maybe one's on vacation. If we have 4 medics, for example, if we have 4 paramedics in the department and run into the same issue with you only have 1 medic in the department on the time, so when there's a medical emergency, that paramedic goes to the hospital or goes on a call or something, now you don't have a paramedic anymore. And you're stuck with the same perpetual problem of we don't have medics. So that's how we came up with the staffing model.
In 2007 through 2009, we contracted the city, not we.
Right.
The city contracted and put a medic, a paramedic firefighter on the fire engine.
Sure.
And then at the time it was Lakewood, then they merged and then it became West Pierce. So we had ALS, and we had ALS immediate response, and then the contract was backed up by transport from that district. So why not just do what we have done, what we know works in other communities of our same size? Why don't we just contract for a paramedic to staff the present ambulance shortfall, 1 paramedic? That would give the city of DuPont a 2-engine fire apparatus and a firefighter EMT and firefighter paramedic on the ambulance. That would improve your capabilities and your safety, and that would allow for the two in, 2 out rule.
Right.
And then that would be the short-term fix. And then in the long term, in 3 years, because you have to do some cost-benefit analysis, why not do what Stillicum, Fife, and Furcrest are doing and just contract everything? Now there's different funding models, but they don't have an ALS level.
Right.
They don't have this enormous cost that you're presenting. They pay actually twice the highest in the 4, but they pay much less than what we're asking for this.
Sure.
So that's my question is we have so there's an old saying, after you've tried it forever, maybe do what your mom told you to do, right?
Right.
It's a
Or
common
your wife.
denominator.
It was your wife, I think I heard.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's changed. That's every day. But we know it worked. It worked for 3 years.
Sure.
All of the comparable cities, population, area, assessed value, everything, that's what they're doing.
Right.
So why can't we go down that path?
Sure. So the reason why we can't go down that path with the contractor services with West Pierce and Fire and Rescue, which is the semi-quasi neighboring agency in the north, because there's federal land that cuts between the two, is, and as it's been asked and explained in the past, they are not interested in doing a contract for services with the city of DuPont. And to the best of my knowledge, it would be more expensive than what we're asking for now to have a full contract services with West Pierce Fire and Rescue to come in and run shop.
We have to do a cost benefit analysis on that.
Sure.
And that's way above us.
Right.
On that. 2 years ago, Title 52 was changed. So now fire agencies, fire districts do not have to have shared boundaries.
Right.
Okay, so that the federal land is a new point. So from each levy, things have evolved and everything it's fluid.
Sure.
It's constantly changing. So West Pierce is contracting with Stowe. West Pierce is for the greater good. I went through West Pierce when they started their CERT program. I was through the first class.
Sure.
We can't speak for West Pierce and anybody. So I just want to be clear on that. If West Pierce was to come out and say, we don't want to do service to our elected officials and to our city officials, that would be great. Then we could, okay, that's done. But that hasn't happened.
Yes, it has.
Has it?
I contacted the chief yesterday.
Okay.
I want to do service.
All right. Unless we annex.
That's not on the table.
I understand.
So you're throwing something else.
No.
The question was,
Yeah.
would West Pierce want to do services? The answer is no.
Okay. So thank you for that. Now, Title 52 changed. There are other agencies. Has any other agency been asked?
I'd have to check Title 52 on the change of language. My understanding was it was for fire district to fire district. Across boundaries.
It's anybody. Fire districts, fire authorities, they created a whole
Sure.
bunch of new things.
Sure.
So we should explore all options.
Well, let me throw in just a little bit. I'm not advocating one way or the other.
Right.
As I hear information, I'm here for information. The only other people would be around would be like Lacey. If West Pierce doesn't want to do it, Lacey would be the only other place that we could go, because JBLM can't do it because it's several days.
Right.
So it would have to be Lacey. Lacey is in the same situation as West Pierce. So, and their travel time into would be greater. So that's an issue there.
I was referring to actually posting a paramedic on the ambulance, not responding. That's what we did before. That's what we did in 2007 and 2011.
But that person is going to have to be employed by Lacey,
Right.
paid by us. That's the same question we asked West Pierce, and they said, no. I have not reached out to Lacey, but I will. But prior to me getting here, that question was asked and answered before, and they not refused, but did not want to participate. So I can get that answer.
That
Yeah,
answer.
it doesn't answer, but it's,
Sure. Direction.
yeah.
Right. Right. What Mr. Roberts proposing is not responding from Lacey, but having a Lacey paramedic staffing the ambulance in DuPont. Is
So
what
we're
he's
still
proposing.
paying, but they aren't to pay somebody. So why would we pay somebody outside?
I'm wondering if we have anything in place that incentivizes where we send paramedic school to stay in DuPont for at least a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and sure, yeah, and typically most union contracts with the management has language in it that says after successful completion of paramedic training, you'll stay with the department for X amount of time period. It could be one research period, if you will, which is 3 years. It could be 2 research periods, which could be 6 years. The cost of paramedic school is, will spitball roughly $10,000. To come to a community college, it's $8,500 for books and the training for Tacoma Community College's program. So the discussion is they typically stay X amount of years before going to another agency. Now the hope is that we have a new fire chief in play, we have new equipment that we need to get, and we have a paramedic program on board, and we become a self-sufficient fire department. We can make it and sell it so that people don't want to leave DuPont. DuPont's a great department to work in. I mean, I don't have to worry about necessarily getting stuck with needles all the time. There's not a large population of homeless encampments in DuPont. Most of our citizens, for the most part, are fairly well-known citizens that are civil and like to get along and don't throw things in the fire department and walk in the front door. So,
But shouldn't that stuff be determined prior to the citizens have to go out for a vote? To say that, oh, we're hoping this is going to happen.
Sure.
That's kind of what happened in previous legislation. Well, just vote for it and then we'll figure out all the differences afterwards. So it's like having those answers to the citizens of, you know, are we hiring the 5 paramedics prior to sending people to school? Or are we just sending those people to school as passes? Are we doing backfill? Are we reducing staffing while we're in paramedic school because we have problems hiring medics? Because there's not really a shortage of medics. Is there the time requirement? There's a lot of these, like, I don't want to say procedural things that should be figured out prior to even the citizens having a vote.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, just vote for it and we'll figure it all out later.
Sure.
And put it in our contract.
Glad this is that give and take that we're lacking, and I'm glad I'm here to provide it. We've actually reached out to 2 other districts. One is Kittitas County, which is Fire Chief is John Sinclair. And for anybody that doesn't know who John Sinclair is, he started with Lakewood and built the EMS program over there. Moved from there to Central Pierce and then went to Kittitas County. And if you look at Ellensburg versus Kittitas County, he's built a program that is far and beyond what you'd expect. And we've actually working with him to make sure, because you can't plan that we wait until January or November to say, okay, now we're going to put this in place. And that's what the administration is doing. So we're putting together the program, the paramedic program, the drugs and everything else, all the licenses we need to have. That will be in place, and we're working on that right now because you can't wait until January. January 1, if it passes in November, January 1, we're moving. Actually, November, we're moving. If it doesn't, then everything goes away. But we have to have a plan in place, ready to go on how we're going to do the hiring and also sending people to school. So those things are being worked out right now, and the plan is probably, I can't tell you when it's going to be completed, but we are moving forward with that plan. And as for anybody, I am Patrick Elligan. I am the interim fire chief. I spent 37 years in Tacoma. I was assistant chief of there before that. And the program down there in Tacoma was created while I was there. So one of the people I'm resourcing is a gentleman by the name of Mike. He's the MSO over there. Anybody that knows Mike is very talented, very good at putting works. And so we're tapping all resources to make sure that we're going to have a program in place, a good plan, probably one of the better plans in place. This is information.
Right, and it's just one of those that getting that information out to the citizens so they can make informed, educated votes.
It is, but you know as well as I do, if all of a sudden a plan comes out, if all of a sudden I decide I want to paint my rig green, there's at least 7 people that are going to want me to paint it black. So those things are helpful to the fire department to be able to have a plan in place. It's a flowing document where we're going to be and how we're going to get there. At the end of the day, it's going to match the EMS levy. That we cannot go outside the parameters of the EMS levy.
Right, and that being said, by adopting this levy, it ties your hands as the intern chief or maybe the next fire chief of appropriate staffing levels, appropriate, how you want to staff your rigs, because that's normally something that's determined by the chief, correct?
but you have to have the resources to be able to do that, to work inside those parameters. You know, we could be asking for, we could be asking for Rolls Royce, and at the end of the day, we end up with a Chevrolet. But as long as it meets the needs of the citizens of DuPont, and we have the services that as being a position for the EMS, that's where we'll be.
Will the council make the policy for the retention program? Because I've been a union employee my whole life, and retention programs by a union mean nothing. I'm just saying, and so policy by the council becomes law, and then there's some teeth behind it.
Correct. Well, the council gives the authority to the fire administration to set those, because that's the same thing in Tacoma. Tacoma, we never had laterals. We did have laterals just before I left with paramedics, and they have a 5-year window. They have to stay for 5 years, and that seemed to be the norm. But those things are all things that are worked out, and then the council is made aware of it. But it gives it teeth to say, if we send you to class, or if we hire you and we do this training, that you are with us for 5 years. You can leave anytime you want, but if you leave, there's a cost estimate that you're going to have to make up because you did come in to use our resources and then take your education with someplace else.
So that would be in the DuPont City personnel manual, not the union, because the way it was presented,
It would be, well, you're correct.
he was presented that the union is going to create a retention fund.
Bill, the union will work with the administration to create the plan that will be put into place for the council.
It'll be adopted policy, that's what I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not into giving away my resources. Just a heads up.
The reoccurring paramedic training, what are the standards for that? And what are the costs for that?
Yeah, so the recurring paramedic training, the cost that we broke down is we'll have the employees approved, will be the in-house MSO training officer that will handle all the MSO training for that position, to include attending Pierce County's advanced airway training that's taking place between East Pierce and Gate Harbor. There's a pilot program they're running right now that is showing, instead of having to maintain all of your stuff in the field as far as intubations and this and that, and then instead of going to just the hospital and doing your time sticks and tubes, if you will, in the ER or in the operating room, it'll actually be recurring ongoing training evaluation process, or OTEP, which is what we use right now for our basic level services, to maintain that required training. The line item in the presentation in the first year I had dollar amount, that budget was broken down based on having 5 firefighter paramedics, what their overtime rate is, and budgeted for 50 hours in the chance they do have to go spend time at the hospital to maintain their certification for maintain their state qualifications for that.
Just kind of need to step in. I have to go. I have to go to another meeting. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm glad we're able to put it together, because this is what needs to happen. It has to happen. Given what I'd like to ask is that on any issue, there's always give and take, and back and forth. And with Facebook out there and the information is going back and forth, if facts are in there. The one thing I'd ask is do not question the veracity or the integrity of my firefighters. Because my firefighter, when he's on duty, my firefighter when he's off duty, but he's also local leadership that he's running. So please, do not take shots against my firefighter. I think that's wrong. I think it's absolutely, it is just not nice. Everybody has a family. Everybody has family that breeds these things. So please, keep it above the fray and make sure that it's factual. It's going to go after something. That's all I ask. So thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
No, I'm fine.
Oh.
So following up on the recurring costs. During the the last ALS fire levy in 2017, the city brought in Chief Todd Jensen, the ALS coordinator for the Grand Fire Department, works on the Pierce County EMS board, an expert, right? So the parameters for that task force was it was a majority vote. And during the presentations of the group, Chief Jensen tried to get the group to go to a contract service or something else. So in the discussion, the chief was trying to say is DuPont does not have the call. They had a discussion. So presently DuPont 200 to 250 ALS calls annually. I don't know, it's really hard to get the actual data. So I'm being off the last one, it was 200 calls a year. During 2017, Chief Creekmore, during the contracting process, when requesting ambulance services contract, said it was approximately 200 ALS calls. So I'm just adding 50 calls a year. I don't know. Sure. So in 2017, Chief Jensen told the city administrator, two firefighters, and another citizen that DuPont does not have enough patient contacts to maintain the paramedic skill level. And he presented what all the other surrounding fire departments and agencies are providing, and it's on average of 150 to 170 calls to maintain the paramedic skill level. So then they had a debate on, well, we have this, and then the chief tried to point it out. You divide that by 3, DuPont's at 3 shifts. So if we're at, let's even just up it, we're at 300 ALS calls a year, and we have 3 shifts, they're not even getting to the minimum of ALS calls to maintain their skill. And the chief was pointing that out. Now, like you said, people take leave, there's military leave, there's injuries, there's all kinds of things. The chief pointed out that for a DuPont paramedic to maintain their skill level, it will take 20 years to get the patient contact needed to maintain a paramedic skill level. So I'm wondering how, when the chief is telling the citizens and the group that you can't do it, they're going to be in training more than they're going to be at work, how does your plan facilitate 8 paramedics? And that one was, I think, was 6. How are we going to maintain the skill level? And the chief also brought out not maintaining the skill level puts the city in a liability. So if you could expand on that.
Yeah, we would do what every other department in the region does, at least in Pierce County, is if you don't get the required, minimum required training on shift, you would then go do your required training at the hospital in the emergency department, or with that pilot program that is coming online in Pierce County that I was just discussing. That program is being brought by the fire departments because the medics, even in East Pierce, who are running 11,000 calls a year, are having issues where they're not getting enough field intubations, if you will. They're having to spend time going to the ER, the OR. So they've created the in-county, working on the in-county pilot program to maintain that skill set that deteriorates if you don't use it, to maintain the skill set to meet state requirements with doctor supervision overseeing the training program. So it's not isolated to DuPont that just because we don't burn enough calls, we won't have the experience. West Pierce sends folks to the hospital to maintain the certification.
I understand that, but I'm just saying is we don't have the calls. We don't have the calls to maintain the skills.
Okay.
And your presentation, your cost doesn't, it's not transparent. It's just, it's an estimate. And as some people were saying, is you're asking us to fund something, to vote for something, and there's unknowns. And if I was getting construction done, I would get 3 bids, and the estimates would be very close.
Right.
And I'd write in there, if there's X and over, you know, if they finish early, I'll give them a benefit. If they finish late, I'm going to take money away. That's how business is done.
Sure.
So you're asking for, I think it's like 15,000 reoccurring on your on the graph.
For the first year is $15,000
Yeah.
for recurring training.
So for 5 paramedics, 15,000.
Yeah, it's averaging 50 hours of overtime for just the training, for recurring training.
So is that, if they're not even getting the calls, when a chief says they're not going to get the calls, how can you, unfortunately the chief just walked out.
Sure.
But it just doesn't add up, because I've looked at other departments.
Okay.
And it's true. People get injured, people take,
Right.
people have surgeries, people take family medical leave. And that's what a lot of the larger agencies are sending those people to reoccurring training. It's not because they don't have the calls, it's because of other life happens issues. We've looked at that. So I'm just really concerned about the reoccurring paramedic training and how this program is going to fund it, because the fact is DuPont, not me speaking, it's the fire chief, DuPont does not have the call volume for the previous plan or this plan. And if you think, sorry, I'm
No,
done.
no, that's fine, and I was just going to say, when you talk about going and getting training for this type of service, wouldn't it be more beneficial to have someone that has constant patient contact all the time, where, and I know you say, you know, first time they have to send their folks out. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you had basically an agency that was able to rotate their staff in and out. So DuPont's the sleeping community. We've got 10 calls in a month or 30 calls in a month, whatever. DuPont is a sleeping community when you compare us to other communities in Pierce County. Even if you compare us to Lacey, getting somebody on board that does this on a regular basis, that comes into a sleeping community, that we know when they're intubating my child, that they've done intubations. And this is not their second one in a year, because that's a blade going down the throat. If they're sticking an IV, and everybody's gone to a doctor and has had an IV done by a bad doctor or by a bad nurse.
Right.
So, if you're not practicing it on a regular basis, not and out in the field, you're not having to go to that hospital.
Sure.
I mean, there is a benefit to say if you're not the hands-on,
Right.
you know, you're better at it.
Right.
And so, I guess that's just my concern is,
Right.
you know, we don't have the call policy. We're not right now, we don't have it. And kind of going back to that, I specifically asked you in April to go back to the city and ask them to do a RFP process to get bids and to bring that to the citizens so that the citizens could look at all of our options before this went to a vote. Specifically, after you said you wanted to do what was best for the citizens.
Right.
And I said, then go out and do that.
Right.
Because I feel that this is such an important issue that we need everybody on board. This doesn't, it shouldn't
Right.
basically be where, you know what, we're hoping to get 50.1%.
What's saying I didn't ask this?
The city hasn't done it.
That doesn't mean I didn't ask them to.
Did you do it at a council?
So the
Did you-
city
Did you
has,
do it at a council meeting?
so the city did the RFPs for 2017, had their numbers. Then the bid requests that they received, they were in the 2017, task force report, they got involved.
Those
Sorry.
were not an official
So-
RFP.
Okay. That being said, the city also has learned from other departments like Keep Peninsula Fire Department, who had a contract for services with the private ambulance company. And in the middle of the contract, the private ambulance company was done. They didn't want to do it anymore. They left. That's Keep Peninsula Fire Department high and dry without that service. Left them scrambling to figure out the service. So my understanding from the city standpoint, I'm not speaking on behalf of the city, but my understanding is they weren't wanting to look into that because of one of the concerns that came with operating with a private ambulance company and situation was past with that. So,
But once again, did you go to the city at a public council meeting and request them to do that? I think that's.
I did not do that at the public council meeting. No.
So just like I have asked them to include the citizens when I've gone to public council meetings, or the council meetings and public comment, I've asked them to include that. Because I don't think we're close to options. I honestly don't. We don't know if there was dynamics that went on with the Peninsula Fire Department
Sure.
and the private ambulance company.
Sure.
Just like we used to have volunteer firefighters,
Right.
something happened. And so when you have interlocal dynamics between the government and the department, things can happen and relationships can be severed.
Right.
We used to have a really good relationship with JBLM. Something happened along the way in the years, and that relationship went away for a while. So when the city truly wants to do something,
Right.
and if it's really looking out for the citizens, the way that I read that bid is we had a company ask, will there be 24, we want 24-hour paramedics. And the company said, will there be housing provided? We said, no, they can't park their vehicle in a city building. And by the way, city code does not let you park in a residential neighborhood or in an apartment complex. When I look at that as a citizen, I'm saying, do we want you to come into our city and provide this service? Or are we saying, come into my city, but do it on my terms?
Sure.
That's what I'm pointing out, is we had I don't know exactly when it was sold, we had the Shaw House. Everybody is aware of the Shaw House. That was a requirement in the hearing examiner that be built. The city sold it. I brought up, and it's interesting, because I do believe I brought up to the city before they sold it, put the privates there, the fire department has a problem working with private ambulance companies.
Sure.
And then what happened shortly after that? It got sold. So now we're limited, now we're back to being limited with our options. So.
So as you said, and she said, many people have kind of said it's fluid, things change. You know, over a decade, each levy has been a little different. The population has changed, but the need and demand and the want is pretty much constant. So, and this isn't, you don't even have to answer it, but I'd just like you to take it to your union. As the citizens go forward, will the union work with private medics for hire, private ambulance companies? Will you, like I said, I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is kind of in your realm. There are rumors, there's speculation, but I mean, that would be something because Mayor Court said at the last city council meeting how great that we're gonna economy scale, we're gonna go with University Place for our Comcast bill. We did the same thing for cleaning the storm drains. We do the same action for sealing our streets. We don't even own the street lights in DuPont because it's too expensive. We have to go to contract. We don't install a deck and go to Bates or Clover Park and learn how to build it and then do it. We go out, we get some bids, and we move forward. And this is what I'm being told is that people are done, they want to move forward. They want the service, and they want it at a reasonable rate. And the second part of that is nobody else in the county or the state has an ALS levy. Everybody else is using their present EMS levy to staff their ambulance, provide basic and advanced life support, and they're using, if it's a fire protection district, they're using their M&O to fund the fire suppression and the engines and all of that. If it's a city, they use their general fund and the sales fund. So my question is, in summary of all that, is the union going to work together if we can move forward? You don't have to answer it. Just that you can't speak to that. But I wanted that question to be out because it's kind of goes off of what she was saying and moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know those are great questions. I mean, and I don't have the answer to the question as far as like you're referring to.
Right.
You know, we need the service. I mean, everyone in this room has said that you know, it's a service that we do need. The proposal that's on the table right now is what I felt was the best way to move forward after hearing the input from multiple directions on things. I can't speak to why the city didn't do it in RFP. I can't speak to that. It's the request for proposal. It's basically going out and getting the bids for services and stuff like that.
Basically, as a official mechanism,
If the city's not willing to support you,
to go out and officially get bids, so it
You
was
ran with it.
basically.
and then you're asking the city for support, even though that they've adopted this plan as their own, but yet they're not willing to support you in gathering more information, that shows a lack of interest in the city side.
Yeah, my understanding is, and it's kind of the way when it was after the last levy, and the response that was provided by the city, and how that unfolded is why the city is opted to take a backseat approach to this, if you will, and has basically said that, you know, we need the service, but we can't do this. We don't have whatever it is, whether there's a trust or not. You know, the question that's come up, like, why aren't we doing a permanent levy, a permanent property tax increase versus a levy? I mean, how many citizens in DuPont have an issue with the city current government and how funding is being done and spending and this and that? I don't know the full story. I won't claim to know the whole story, but my understanding is there's a public safety building and a city hall building that was not done the way it was supposed to be done or presented to the citizens in that light. So doing a 4-year levy versus a permanent tax increase secures the funding for the program itself versus a blanket program that says, hey, we have all this money, oh, the medic program is only using this much of it, but we need to buy streetlights. Just hypothetical, I don't know how that works out with the streetlights, it's Gus's world. But, you know, it locked the funding into just this program versus a blanket overall program. There was the concern about, you know, what happens if after 2020 the economy tanks, or with the new mayor potentiality changing in the city government, what happens with the money there? It's a 4-year levy to make sure that if everything goes sour, you know, we have 4 years to figure it out and either hopefully bring staffing online. I know there was a SAFER grant done years ago that brought 3 personnel into the city. The way a SAFER grant works is federal funding for staffing. In year 1, the federal government says, here's 100% funding for your staffing. In year 2, they basically say, here's 50%, and then the last year is 25%, and at the end of it, you're supposed to have been able to figure out a solution to keep the staffing involved. That didn't happen, and those 3 people that got the jobs got pink slips at the end of the SAFER grant. So having the 4-year ability to look at it and say, okay, hey, in 4 years, this is where the program's at. It's generating X amount of dollars in transport revenue, which is something that hasn't been discussed about. But it is a source of revenue in essence when you bill for the transportation to the hospital, and figuring out where does that medium lie that we can take some of the money off of the citizens for the paramedic levy in 4 years with all the new construction that's coming online, and the AEs expected to go up by hundreds of millions of dollars from what I've been told. In 4 years, that ask of what's right now is 66 cents per thousand. In 4 years, that could drop significantly more than what's projected in the 6-year forecast.
I have a couple little questions, but I don't know if you're gonna be able to. What percentage of DuPont's calls end up being I-5 involved, not DuPont resident? Because I guess in my mind, I'm trying to think, I'm always for anything that is police, fire, and schools. Like almost to the point where it's like automatic yes on the ballot. But
Right.
you know, the discussion I'm hearing online is, wait, there could be a better way to do it. So that's why I'm here. Do we pay for the paramedics that are, say, half the ALS calls are coming from I-5? Or, you know what I mean? Like, do we get any kind of state money to cover some paramedic costs because half your calls are from I-5 stuff and not DuPont residents? Or does that not even come into play?
Sure. I don't have the percentage of how many calls we respond to on I-5. City of DuPont Fire Department responds automatically with Joint Base Lewis McCord Fire Emergency Services to Interstate 5. We also cover unincorporated just south of Mounts Road, so in that little corner pocket down by the Scully Delta. That's unincorporated, that's automatic in between both agencies. There'll be times we get dispatched to the freeway and we're pulling out on the apron and we get told it's canceled because JBLM's already been there for 10 minutes and we're backing back into the station. And we don't even go to the freeway for that call, for example. If we go to the call, depending on the kind of call it is, most people say motor vehicle accident, most likely on the freeway. There is a cost recovery program in place right now for motor vehicle accidents, whether we even transport a patient to the hospital or not. The way billing works for medical is your medical insurance as a City of DuPont resident, your medical insurance will get billed, and then after that, anything after that, as a City of DuPont resident, is written off through the levy funding. That's current right now with the EMS levy in place. So I'm talking about futuristic. Right now, if you got into a motor vehicle accident, we take you to the hospital, your insurance gets billed, the rest is written off as your citizen and pays taxes. Also on that, added to the fee structure, fee schedule for the beginning of this year, when the fire engine's there and puts some chemical absorbent down and takes care of traffic control and cleans debris and all the ancillary stuff outside of the actual emergency operation, they bill the motor vehicle insurance company for those services and recoup costs from there as well. So there's a cost recovery involved with motor vehicle accidents specifically. And if we take a patient to the hospital and they're not a City of DuPont resident, for example, they're going to get their insurance billed, and then anything after that, the city can go after that individual specifically.
When did we start responding to I-5?
When we start responding to I-5, my first day as a volunteer at DuPont back in 2015 was I called the I-5 Armageddon, which shut the freeway down for 11 hours with a fatality. So I've been going to the freeway since 2013.
As a first day?
I believe on that call, I think we were second on that one. Yeah. But we're not, if we're first in on the freeway, it's only because we had the lights or something like that. There's no, we get called and then somebody, we're going to call for help.
It used to not be a practice. It wasn't until recently that we started responding far more to the freeway.
Right. I'm not sure when the automatic aid changed for the freeway stretch.
Can you explain the automatic aid?
Yeah, so automatic aid, so there's mutual aid and automatic aid. Mutual aid, we have a mutual aid agreement with Joint Base Lewis McCord that says, hey, if we need help, we can call you. Vice versa, hey, if they need help, they can call us. I haven't responded to an emergency on the base, but they have that in their packet, they can call us if they need to, something catastrophic. I-5 stretches still from DuPont Road towards Solo Point and off Mounts Road. Instead of JBLM gets dispatched and then they call for us, or we get dispatched and we call for them, both agencies are automatically dispatched at the same time. So I-5, depending on cell phone carriers and the curvature of the earth and how hot it is outside that day, it depends on what cell tower they receive the 911 call. So you could be driving on I-5 northbound to the way station, call 911, and they will go to JBLM's dispatch center. And they'll do their thing and notify Pierce County's dispatch center, Southside 911, and then automatic aid happens. Or if you're on, let's say, the lane over the next day and you call 911, State Patrol's tower catches it. State Patrol's tower catches it, it goes to Southside 911's tower, and then they dispatch us, and they call JBLM's dispatch center to dispatch them automatically. So someone's going to that call, in essence. It's double covered to ensure that there's response to that area.
Aren't these all, like, aren't these priorities set by the chiefs of the department through Southside 911?
Wish he was still here.
Just saying, so like, I know some agencies will say on dispatch cards that we're not available for these type of runs in this location.
Sure.
So what I'm curious is, since in a sense, as of recent years, we've started responding to the freeway more, and it puts the DuPont services out of service for a lot of period of time. Whether it's ALS, BLS, it doesn't really matter. But by us expanding our district per se,
Sure.
so all the way up to Madigan Gate and all the way down to Nisqually, we've in a sense expanded our district, which in turn expands our calls, bumps up our call volume, allows us to justify more resources, which is fine. However, it also takes away services from the citizens because of the out of service. So that's a concern if we're expanding our district and we're complaining about having services to cover our own city, is expanding our district to cover more.
Sure.
That's a huge concern when you're talking about out of service time. And I know most citizens don't think about it that way, but
Right.
it's a very valid concern that, oh, so you're going up to, Madigan Gate or even Thorn Lane for a car accident that JBLM is far closer to, but we've been added to the dispatch call for the freeway area at some point for automatic aid, because we weren't on there before as first up or first due. But we've been added, and now, while that you're dealing with the 45 minutes of an MDI on the freeway, now the citizens of DuPont have no ALS, BLS, or support within the city. So to me, it's, well, we don't have enough to cover our own district, but let's expand it, just so we can, in a sense, give the appearance that we're busier than we are.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm?
Yeah, I know,
it's more of a
the
point.
perception.
The perception is
Perception of it.
that we're increasing our calls
Right.
by inherently expanding our district, but yet we're complaining about not having services to handle what's in our own city.
Right.
That right there is a valid concern that
Sure.
I have. If we don't have enough, we shouldn't be going outside.
Sure.
Now, I understand mutual aid agreements and all that, so that's not an issue, but like memorandums of understandings are different than mutual aid agreements.
Right.
So the mutual aid agreements we have with Matt, or with Fort Lewis, is for mutual aid, more likely fire response than anything. However, we don't get invited to the party very often. It's just like Madigan, if they're the closest medic, they will respond without a question. But it's a matter of, is it truly a medic call?
Right. We don't have a mutual aid agreement with Madigan. Madigan Ambulance's responsibility for base commander is the base. And Madigan Ambulance is a hospital-based private ambulance company, if you will, for Madigan that has a mutual aid agreement with JBLM, Fire and Rescue. So JBLM can call for Madigan Ambulance. And I've seen Madigan come in town before because JBLM's Ladder 101 had a medic on board and called for a medic unit. And Madigan medic came in because the mutual aid agreement came in and did the transport. So,
This year, I know there was a Madigan transport.
yes.
Out of DuPont.
Yes, there was. There was no other medic available in the area. West Pierce had a fire at the time. I was on that call. Yeah.
Miss Jessica, I don't know if you can answer this, this might be more of a hypothetical, but my husband used to work in IT for several years, for about, I don't know, 12 years or so.
Okay.
He has a firefighter friend. He heard some rumblings that West Pierce might be pulling out his phone. Is there any chance that if that happens, and we have an ALS program that we could contract to make extra money for this facility?
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs with that one. I know the current contract with West Pierce is still going. I was just at their meeting last night. It expires in 2022, I believe it is. As far as the unhappiness of services either being reciprocated or provided, I can't speak to that. I don't know, it's still going with West Pierce. Yeah, I mean, if for some reason there's an issue with that service and we have the means to work with that, we couldn't do what West Pierce does as far as shut down the station, in my opinion, I don't feel that we'd be able to just say, sure, we can do the contract with Silicon and drive from DuPont to respond to Silicon, because the distance is a lot larger than if Oak Brook Station from West Pierce is going into town, and or Lake City's station going into town. That would be, we'd have to, I would predict we'd have to staff the fire station there with another engine or a medic company, how that would work out. I mean, it's all, there's opportunity there if it happens, but there's also, is that what DuPont wants to do? You know, is that something that would be, would it bring in enough money to do that? I mean, obviously, I think the contract would be enough money to support whatever it is they needed. But that's, I don't make those decisions, and that's, yeah.
You said you had a few questions.
Yeah, well, my other question, and I'm maybe putting you on the spot, you might not know the answer. When you say in 2017, when the levy didn't do well, the city said, okay, fire department union, you guys are taking it on next time. When you say the city, is that a council decision? Was that a mayor decision? You know, who said hands off it's on you? And then kind of connected to that, if they did put it all on your plate, for the good or the bad of it, you know, I think you guys are the experts, so you certainly should have the most insight into decision making for the fire department. Why would the city be in charge of doing an RFP? Why wouldn't you guys? And I don't mean that like in any jab way, like, because I don't even know what an RFP really is, but like, would that be something for you guys to do? As far as look out, make calls for contracts?
Yeah, my understanding of that is because I tried to get a hold of Falk multiple times back in April and March timeframe to find out, hey, where are we at? Here's the numbers.
What's Falk?
Falk's private ambulance company in Pierce County.
Oh, right.
Yeah. They just kind of stopped communicating. And then my understanding is they have to work with the governing body, the city. I can't do an RFP on behalf of the city. So being that if I were to call them and say, hey, this is Jason Leck, City of DuPont Fire Department, I'm working on this, can you comply with this? That's one story, and at the same time, I wouldn't be able to even have this conversation if I had done that because I was working in a different ballpark. If I call and say, hey, this is Jason, Vice President of Local 38 going up, and it's the International Association of Firefighters, can I get this information? They can go, no. And then they would have to go to the city and figure out if the city was actually doing an RFP or not. And they would contact the city. And
that goes for anyone other than Falk or even calling Lacey to see, hey, are you on board? Or, so that has to all be done through the city. So in order for you guys to come up with as many options as possible, the city had to work with you, but was giving it all to you guys.
yes.
And what about my question about the city? When you say the city said it's on your plate, is that a council decision or?
I don't believe it was a council decision to make that. I had been approached by city staff at City Hall and told that. And it was also, like I said, in the mayor's budget, proposed budget, that said the fire union needs to be involved with the next attempt for paramedic services. So that's what we kind of were like, well, we're being told we need to, and it's right here that we need to for a long-term plan. But like I said in the beginning, the reason why we chose to do it now versus in 3 or 4 years from now.
Kind of one of those, there's no good time. There's always something going on.
So in the mayor's 2019-20 budget development, basically his final words about the budget, basically the mayor's message, it says, we should also suggest that fire unions secure professional services to run the life. So what that means is the city cannot go out and hire a company to pass a city levy. The city cannot use city staff to run the city levy, go out and promote it. So by the mayor saying we should also suggest the fire union secure professional services to run the levy, that means you're using an agency that is usually successful in running levies. you're paying someone, or you're paying somebody to do it, or you're getting professional support from someone to help assist, rather than being truly funded by citizens support. So.
And to kind of add to your question, the RFP. So on RFP, request for proposal, there has to be kind of parameters set of what you're asking. And so that would be something the city would have to come up with, or the union would have to draft the document and have the citizens or the city council approve it and then go forward with the RFP. So it's not as simple as calling AMR or Falk or somebody and saying, hey, give me an RFP. It's more of like if you're building your deck and you go out and get bids, you have to have parameters of what you want your deck to look like, right? So it's, you know, I want a 20 by 30 deck that's 3 feet off the ground. I want it to be able to support X number of pounds or X number of people or what have you. I want the glass panels versus wire railing. So you have to actually set the standards and the kind of the guidelines and barriers and boundaries of that request so they can meet that request. Meet similar to like what Mariah said earlier with, well, just to let you know, you can't use a city building, you won't be able to park pretty much anywhere in the city, so give me a price based on that. So if you're a business owner and you're trying to take care of your people, do I have to buy a house?
Yeah, you're not
Do I have to buy a house and
situation
then,
where they're not really.
I'm not gonna put my employees in a hostile work environment because I kind of answer a little bit more of your
Yeah, and
RFP
then, like,
question.
I really have to say I have not followed the issue and whatever happened in 2017, I'm not aware of. So I feel like there was something I'm missing, like there's a connection you want me to make that I'm not making. You know, from just what I'm hearing, I feel like you guys were left high and dry, like, good luck with this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's, I mean, when it, this is very wishy-washy to me.
So is this the mayor's
Like it
budget
wasn't
letter?
just,
This is the mayor's
You have
budget
to get
letter.
some context. Yeah, just don't pull this.
No, and I did. I said this was from the mayor's 2019, 2020. So in 2018, this is when this was written.
okay, we should also suggest, like, should is not a definitive verb. Suggest is not a definitive verb. I'm like tearing it apart with my English. But we should also suggest the fire union secures professional services. So does that mean they're saying you should hire someone to help you write a levy? Is that what professional services to run the levy?
Top interpretation.
Okay.
So campaigns can hire people
Okay.
that do data mining,
Okay.
that study sociology, that study people, that study demographics.
Right.
And
Numbers.
and that's, I think, from
What the
listening,
suggestion was.
is that there are professional services for everything.
Right,
And there are
sure,
professional
okay.
services for campaigns, for candidates,
Right,
for
right.
whatever.
And
It's a basic business.
and to touch on that, this entire presentation was made by me.
Well, and that's what I'm asking.
There was
So
no
this money to
professional-
pay for a professional
Yeah, because
service was
because if
intended to come out
the
of your
union
pocket.
does that, yeah, if the union does that, that means I'm personally paying out of my own pocket to go out of a $30,000 campaign manager to come in and do that.
Right.
Sorry, I don't have
Well, and
that.
that's why I'm
So, yeah,
in my
all
interpretation,
the-
it's like just
all
throw at you
the-
guys like good luck with it, or
All
I don't.
all the data mining, all of the ideas, the proposals, the costs of it, that was all done by me. I did all of it. It wasn't calling, West Pierce Fire Union to say, hey guys, you can try this. They had their own stuff. I'm not gonna burden them with that. I could call International Association of Firefighters and say, hey, I need you guys to come do all this for me.
And was it like when you came up with it, was it, I mean, I know you probably did the grunt work, but was there a group that came together to talk about, maybe someone from another fire agency that could give input, or a citizen who has experience with not being, you know what I mean, like, I don't know, that's kind of. break through all the issues that now all of a sudden seem to be popping up, questions,
Right.
you know, to present the most clear levy,
Sure.
so that we're not revisiting it in 2 years again, like we kind of have been.
Yeah, when this was first discussed and brought up, and, you know, I had met with the Pierce family and stuff. I had done a couple of other meetings with citizens and stuff. And moving forward, as I was creating the presentation, and then altering the presentation, it wasn't altering data, it was changing what was being presented based on the questions I was getting from the community and stuff. I felt and still do feel that I did the best I could with what I had to get the information out and hear what the citizens say. Hey, we want the program to grow and organically. We want to hire one medic a year for the next 4 years. Well, then you'd be paying for a paramedic that can't do paramedic services because you can't have part-time paramedics or in this kind of program. So I didn't see. It makes sense. I mean, I'd be all, yeah, we can grow organically, but then you as a citizen are paying for a paramedic who can't do paramedic services, that's not going to be doing any skill set whatsoever on call information. The ask was too much, we were asking for too much money. We got down to 66 cents per thousand. Right? I thought that was a good price compared to $1.52 the last time and 2 something 4 times ago or something like that. So I honestly feel and felt in my heart of hearts that I was doing things right and still continue to feel like I'm doing things right. Not trying to hide anything. I've been trying to, you know.
And I don't want to come off as criticizing
no.
you. I guess my feeling is that you obviously put a lot of time into this, but were you given the correct support for it? And you know what I mean?
Right.
So not to criticize you. I'm trying to figure out. It shouldn't have to be a one-man show. You know, to present the best program that the most people will get on board with. So yeah, it's not about criticizing you, but that's why I'm trying to figure out, like, gosh, was it just kind of dumped on the fire department? Like, good luck with this. We tried. We're going to focus on other things. You know, that's where I'm coming from, because it shouldn't just be.
Right. The way I read that is, if you want it, you need to go out there. We're washing our hands of this because we've done hand-selected committees twice, and these hand-selected committees know exactly what we wanted and are going in the same direction as what we want to get you. However, they were unsuccessful, so we're going to wash our hands of this. So if you want it, you need to go get it. We did meet with Jason and talk about a number of things, everything from numbers, from projections, from, you know, everything down to making sure you register with the PDC. So there was a lot of dialogue that went back and forth with Jason, myself, and Mariah in reference to this. But one of the main concerns that both Mariah and I had was the lack of citizen input. So just going out and talking to this person here or that person there has, you know, even if you were to talk to 70 people individually, it doesn't, you're not getting the same result as if you were to open a forum and actually, hey, citizens, what do you want? What are you willing to pay for? What services do you want? Now, if you ask, such as one of the previous surveys that was done, do you want 5 person on an engine or do you want 4 people on an engine? That's providing a survey with specific results that you already are getting. It's not, hey, do you want paramedics, yes or no? You know, it doesn't matter the cost, but do you want them, yes or no? So it's one of those things, go out and get things, get information from the citizens. This isn't the first, this is the 5th letter. 4 others have failed. At no point in time has the city actually gone out, or the union for that matter, have they actually gone out to the citizens, held a forum and say, this is what we're thinking. Similar to like the community center, what's going on right now. They're actually going out and, you know, getting options, getting feedback from the city and from the citizens, like, okay, when you do this big monstrosity, does it need a pool? Does it not want a pool? You know, do you want, you know, do you want a stage or do you not want a stage? So they're actually going out and getting information from the citizens on what they're willing to pay for, on what they're willing to, you know, what they want. Whereas, correct, and you're not, but
I mean, so let's you.
Well, the difference between even one outreach versus no outreach.
You were outreach tomorrow, where have you guys been?
Where am I in?
You want to be involved, where have you been?
I've volunteered multiple times over the last 12 years to be part of the ALS committee, to be part of the previous committee, to sit down at the mayor's house, which I have.
Only where that place.
So either way,
The rest of the group.
it's one of those that, am I involved?
And I'm just gonna step in. When you know that you're a very concerned citizen, I do not feel that you should have to continuously go to the city and say, hey, I have a concern, I have a concern. At some point, the city needs to take ownership and responsibility and reach out and say, hey, you have spoken up about this before. I want you to come in. You have spoken up about this before. You have spoken up about this before. Let's all get together.
Or you could corroborate the person who gave it to you and build
It
a
was
plan.
too late.
The
It
plan
was
was
already
I
too
don't believe
late.
it is for us to mistake the council, so that is incorrect.
A little bit about me. I was raised, and I've watched things, I observed things, and I was raised in a big family, so I learned about equability really quick. And why did Ken get more ice cream at dinner than I did? And that continues because Bob just got a new car, and my wife said, no, it's not equitable. But in this situation, I look at all the other communities, and I look at DuPont, and at the last levy, it was repeatedly asked of the city council in the city, why do they continue, since the recession, the downturn, why do they use the EMS levy fund to staff the fire engine? Their response years ago, and it's always been, we make an operational commitment to do this. No other city does that. No other fire district does that. So I'm asking you a question that you can't answer, but maybe you could bring to them, and maybe, because that's the big issue. You're asking for money that it's basically an equability. It's an allocation. It is. I mean, when you break this down, that's the common denominator. This all started 10 years ago when they changed the funding, and then they started asking for more money. So if they just went back to the funding that everybody else is doing in Pierce County and in the state, we should be asking for a 66 cents. The against committees from 2008 to present has always provided options, financial options. So the question is in the last levy, off of the specifications that the city gave the private ambulance companies, the against group created a numbers and an estimate for a private ambulance company. And it was a 12 cents increase on the EMS levy. So it would have been 62 cents by using the EMS levy to fund an ambulance. It would have been 12 cents. So 62 cents, that was proposed. That was given to them. Now, down the road, we find out that they had skewed those specifications, as you guys were all talking about, for an RFP. So it would have actually been less had it been a more honest and transparent situation. So that relationship of my brother getting more ice cream than me, Bill gets a new car, and my wife says no. And this city does everything different than everybody else. How and I know you can't answer this, but you do have, we get 3 minutes. We get 3 minutes and
Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
I've seen the timer stop on
Right,
folks.
and so.
Some people get 3 minutes and 14 seconds, but we won't.
No, what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to point out that for 8 years, actually over 8 years, for over a decade, this whole issue is about relationships. The biggest relationship is the citizens, this community, whether we're united or divided, do not have access to their government. That that is the common denominator, unfortunately. And nobody here has control over that. That's the unfortunate reality.
Right.
I can't address it any more than that. But what I'm asking is, going forward, the idea of a relationship, why can't we fund? Why can't we do the same process? Here's the thing. Every other city, I'm going to break it down to kind of what everybody knows, the school district. Every other city is using basic math. 2 + 2 is 4. DuPont has gone to the new Common Core, and 2 + 2 is 5. That's the difference. That's the relationship, the question that I keep coming back to. The equability. Why can't we do what they're doing? Why can't I have what they have at the same dollar rate? We're not that much different. Every city is unique, every town is unique, everything has positives, everything has assets, everything has negatives. So that's my question. It's basically a funding issue. We can't, 3 minutes, it's been asked repeatedly. If when you do have that opportunity, maybe you could present that.
Yeah, my understanding with the EMS levy fund is it makes up about 50% of the department's budget, total budget. And each one of us are firefighter EMTs. So if you take half the job, EMT, what our job description responsibilities are, then that's kind of where that line comes into play.
I understand it. I understand it, and it's, us discussing budget is really not, I mean, I can throw all kinds of facts out and everything.
Sure. I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know, I cut you off for the accident.
No, that's okay. I have to go and sort through all what I heard. It is overwhelming. It's not an easy decision. I think, like you said, that we all want ALS. There's no doubt about it. It's just what the best approach is. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for
And the
coming out.
coffee.
If you have any questions, let me
Should
know.
imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can answer me this. Has there been a study, anything that tracks the quality of service between having a private company versus, fire department? The reason I ask this is because when I was in college, I was in a biology class with someone who was working at one of these private ambulance companies. I don't know if they're trashing the ambulance companies, but this guy came in very unhappy with the service that their company provided and
Sure.
how they treated their employees, maybe lots of not overtime, but lots of, in and out of employees. And he was going back to school so that he could join a fire district.
Right.
And I'm wondering if there's any kind of numbers to that, like.
No, I don't know if Seattle does press Caney reports for their medical transports and customer service feedback and stuff like that, like a hospital would. So tracking customer service satisfaction scores as a private ambulance company versus a fire department is kind of non-existent. The main thing that sticks out in the difference between the two is that private ambulance company will provide private ambulance services, EMTs, paramedics. The fire-based firefighter paramedic program, you get firefighter paramedics and get dual role employees versus just single role employees.
To kind of answer your question, it's all based on accountability. So whether it's the agency holding the service provider, so the city holding whatever the private company is accountable for their service. I mean, if citizens are complaining, then it's holding people accountable. If it's you yourself calling whatever company that is and holding them accountable, there's an accountability and there's a respect. But normally when there's a contract, there's more accountability that can be influenced from the contractual holder versus the service provider. Does that make sense? So it's more of a, if they're not providing your citizens with the service that you want them to, then you meet with them, hold the contract to what it is, and that's also where it comes to an RFP is just it's a request for proposal, it's not the final contract, things can be negotiated amongst those. So that's where it has to do with the city or the municipality actually looking out for their citizens by holding whatever provider, whether it's the fire department or whether it's a private agency account.
And if the contract with the private maintenance company doesn't go well, the contract can end. So if something were to happen in another fire agency, private company can go, this doesn't meet our needs, we're not generating enough revenue for our private industry, we're out. It's similar to what happened when AMR lost the contract bid with the area hospital with Pierce County and Falk took over, which is why we now see Falk and not AMR, because Falk won the contract with AMR, and AMR said, hey, there's no more lucrative business in Pierce County, see why. Which is why our ALS transport prices, or ALS transport frequency has increased since then, because AMR had the county-wide agreement that, hey, we're going to do interfacility transports and help out these other areas. Falk said they would do that as well. Falk's trying to keep up with their contract that makes the most money, which is interfacility transport between the counties and the area hospitals. So, yeah.
So I do have a question. So in the 2019 and the 2020 proposed budget, the way the organizational chart was pointed out was that basically a 3-person response. Am I correct? Currently, right now, we have
You have a 3-person minimum response, correct?
3-person minimum response.
Yeah, so there's four personnel assigned to each shift with a 3-person minimum. So there'll be 2 on the engine and 2 on the ambulance. And if one person's off, we don't call back and backfill that 4th position for overtime, because the minimum staff is 3.
Okay.
So if we go below 3, then we'll call back for overtime and bring it back to 3-person staff.
How many roving firefighters do we have right now?
None, because we have 4 per shift. So if we have 4 per shift and one leaves, you don't have to backfill that position with the rover.
Okay.
Because the rover position is designed to absorb overtime costs.
So, okay, so one of the things that's been an issue in the past as well has been the 2 in, 2 out and meeting on shift. What guarantee do we have that says we're not going to go to a 4-person minimum staff consistent? That we will stay at 3-person, because when we look at the final, like your staffing model, it now is a 5-person thing. So I just want to know, because those minimum staffing requirements do play a big part in the overtime.
Right.
And so what guarantee do we have that we're not going to change from a 3-person to now we've got a minimum 4-person, or now we're going to take to a minimum 5-person, so those positions have to be backfilled and raise the overtime costs.
And with the final layout there, you'll see there's 2 rover positions. So that if somebody is off, you can backfill, the rover would pick that day as theirs, because they're not assigned to the shift. So they choose their 18 days throughout the, not all 9 times shift, they choose their days throughout the shift. So that if, for example, they have 5-person staff and they're concerned the 2 in, 2 out rule, 1 person could be gone and we still have 2 in, 2 out. We go below that, and then it's like, okay, well that's the shift the rover needs to focus on, is the one that's going to be below that minimum staffing level of 4.
So my concern is not about how the rover goes in, my concern is about the guarantee that the minimum staffing requirement is still going to remain at 3. Because yes, you have the rover, which is great, and they can still back into that 5-person shift, but there's not a requirement to back into that. Once you change your minimum staffing requirement from a 3 to a 4, or from a 3 to a 5, now there's that requirement. And so what guarantee do we have that that minimum staffing requirement isn't going to change?
And you're not wanting it to change? You want to stay at 3?
Why wouldn't you have it at 3 and just have your staff on it?
Well, minimum staff right now is 3.
Yes, I
Right.
understand 3,
Okay.
but we're gonna add more people.
Right.
So, which is fine, I can add more people.
Sure.
But I only need 3, so if those 2 people call in sick, I don't have to backfill them, basically, unless it was a paramedic.
Okay, I think I see how you're asking it. So, if the levy is approved and we have the staff level of 5, there's nothing stopping us from saying the minimum staffing will be 4 now and go from 3 to 4
Correct,
to ensure that we have the 2 in, 2 out model.
correct.
So,
Because right now, we're doing that. We're doing it without having to utilize overtime.
right.
So,
Minimum staffing
once,
is 3.
minimum
4,
staffing
so,
is 3, but we staff 4
uh-huh.
because we have the rovers.
Right. No, we have 4. We staff 4 because we have 4-person staffing per shift right now.
But you just said minimum staffing is 3.
Correct. So if one
If
person's
they have
off,
4 people
So
come
one
into
person-
work, then there's 4 people. If one of those people don't come into work because they're sick or on vacation, then they have 3.
Yes.
Right.
But we don't have to backfill it.
Correct. But if 2 people call in sick,
Then you do.
then you have to call in 1 person, not 2 people.
But that's what I'm saying is,
Can I follow up?
what guarantee do we have?
I think what Mariah is trying to get at is that at the last city council meeting, the mayor talked about optimal and budget staffing for the entire city. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I see Maria going through is this is basic growing up bureaucracy. If we add people, now the minimum staffing becomes 4. So now we have to, the minimum staffing is now 4. Matter or not, we have to have that, whether you have to get the hobo or the rover down the road. Further on, you have 5. Now they're going to say, because it's an election year or whatever, they said, we did this, now the minimum staffing is 5, or in the labor contract, whatever it may be, that's how it works. So bureaucracies grow and they need more people, not necessarily does it improve, and I'm not saying the fire, I'm just saying in general, it doesn't improve, but because we grew, we have to grow again to cover that growth. Because in union contracts, not just the fire department, if you increase from 13 personnel to now just under 20 or 21, the union contract, all union contracts and most agencies use a multiplier of full-time employees to determine how many are allowed off. If our minimum staffing to achieve the mission or the goal of that department, we need 3 people on duty, but our minimum staffing is 5, by vacation, we have to allow 2 off and have someone to cover 2. You see, this is much bigger. This is more like the council.
I'm just trying to
Yeah,
no, not Iowa. If there was a
Yeah,
problem to Iowa, it wasn't you. It was my head kind of trying to.
Right. But what it is,
I'm trying to say.
what it is it's basic human resources. It doesn't matter for the fire department. It doesn't matter. It's how governments grow.
Right.
And then they added people. Now they have to add more to cover that individual or that group.
Right.
Because human resources says, well, now it doesn't matter. You get to have 5 people on leave. You get to have this or this because of just numbers. And,
Yeah.
and so this is what I think Mariah is getting at, is that you're going to grow and then you're going to have to grow again to cover that growth. Is that kind of?
Well, what I'm saying is right now you have a minimum staffing of 3. So that's the requirement. We have to have 3 on. But because the way we're staffed, we have 4 on, correct? So if one goes out sick, that's great. We don't have to pay overtime.
Right.
When we add these new 5 firefighters, there's no guarantee that the city or the union is going to say, you know what, we're still okay with minimum staffing 3. That is our minimum requirement. So we don't get into an overtime situation where you could have an easily argument from the city's point or from the union's point and say, minimum staffing, we have to minimally staff the paramedic unit by 2 paramedics. We have to minimally staff the fire department by 4 firefighters. So now we're minimally staffed by 6. What what guarantee do we have
There's
that,
not one.
well, no,
There's not one. There's not. That comes down to a chief's decision for staffing as well as what he presents to. There's no guarantees.
which then creates the overtime, because if the chief basically decides we need minimum staffing of 4,
But that's,
I
So
just,
and in the contract that I know you guys have seen, there's a bidding process in there for when we choose vacations and time off and Kelly days, if you will. There's FLSA required time you have to take off from work because you're working the hours or whatever. But there's a bidding process for that per shift, when we basically write out the days for the year that says, these are the days I want you to take off. If your shift is nice, you work together. If the shift's not nice, it goes by seniority and you might get hosed on all your vacations. But that being said, that then has to go to the chief for approval. And in the contract, 2 people can't take vacation at the same time on the same shift.
no, and I get that.
Right.
I
So that,
understand
so
that.
we don't put ourselves into having to force an overtime situation for the community.
But still, the question is there going to be the desire to change from a minimum staffing of 3 now to a minimum staffing of 4?
Well,
Or a minimum staffing of 5?
right. It would not be the city's interest or the union's interest, and I'm probably going to chastise for that one, but us saying our minimum overtime, if we have 5-person staffing, for example, and I say the minimum staffing level is now going to be 5, that forces mandatory overtime. So when you're going home to go to the Seahawks game, and I say, no one picked up the overtime shift, you're staying. You're staying. You're not going to the Seahawks game.
That's if you have a minimum staffing of 5.
That's if we try to jump up the minimum overtime, the minimum staffing level, and we say, hey, now we've done that, in essence, you pigeonhole yourself and say, hey, we want to make minimum staffing level this, and then you say, well, no one picked it up, mandatory overtime.
And that's what I'm asking, what guarantee do the citizens have that that minimum staffing isn't going to change from what it is today if this levy is passed?
I don't know if I can guarantee that right now.
So,
I mean, I can see it change if the levy passes and the program comes online, because like, for example, it's a 3-year program build, if you will. It's not, now we have 8 new people working at the fire department overnight. It's fluid, like all of this is fluid. So as it progresses and those people come online, we might be able to say, okay, hey, we have the staffing now we can do a minimum staffing of 4. And we can guarantee there's 2 on the ambulance and there's 2 on the fire engine. And that's what that's our target goal. But going to minimum staffing of 6 and there's 6 on when the model doesn't have showing 6 on, or minimum staffing of 5 on, then that forces the city to pay overtime. Because now you're going to mandatory need to work the overtime to maintain that minimum staffing that's max per shift of 5.
and I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's just bad business for everyone.
Would it be minimum staffing of 4? Would it be minimum staffing of 5? You know, that's just,
Right.
that's one of those things, because yes,
Sure.
that minimum staffing level does provide the calculation
Right,
for the overtime.
right.
So, or the parameters, I guess, would be
Right.
represented, so,
Sure.
you know, so, and, yeah, so anyway.
Are you aware of any plans of the union or just contract negotiations to increase the minimum level of staffing should this
No.
Are you aware, can I ask a question? Is the fire department going to give back their medical retirement?
just in case?
I don't know, it hasn't been discussed yet.
Because I just want to give kudos to the police department for not asking for it. So, just because you can ask for something, it doesn't mean you take it, or even if it's offered, so.
And that's with,
Anything else on Proposition 1?
so that would
No? Cool. Well, thanks for coming out. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry it's cold out.
They keep their doors open
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.